Emos meows like someone pretending to be a cat. That's like a bad... It reminds me of the cat sounds from Princess Bride. Oh my god, Tance's face at the moment. It reminds me of Demos. That's this weird stare. Hello, this is the Drunk Duck QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 421. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Tance. Hello, Tance.
Hello.
And Baines. Hi, Baines.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. This week we're going to be talking about nightmares. Nightmares. All those terrible things when you wake up in the nude, being chased by Freddy Krueger, and your exams are overdue, and you failed everything.
As you're falling.
As you're falling.
Through water.
Yes.
Through water.
Yeah, through water, deeper and deeper and deeper, with pressure on your chest and all that enjoyable stuff. But first, we have to get into the feature, I suppose, the featured comic that Ozone Ocean has done for us. I featured the comic this week. How could I make that mistake? It's my turn, I believe. So
It's my time!
So yeah, I'm going to talk about the feature that I featured this week. So here I go with Edentia, or Edentia. Okay, go. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was Edentia. Oki the Goose is royal guardian to Prince Corrigan, who is not the heir to the throne because he's only a younger son. But that just means he can have more fun, and Oki is more than glad to indulge him. Oki is an unusual blue fellow from the planet Argo. He's happy to go on adventures with his human prince, get into trouble, and work his way out of it. Endentia is an action sci-fi comedy featuring a whole lot of cool mecha. It's full color and highly stylized. If you like what you see, you can also read the later version called Edge of the Universe, also by EO2. Read Endentia by EO2, rated E. Yeah, it's a nice looking comic, full colour. Like I said, there's a later version, bit of a reboot, bit of a sequel, bit of both. But it's featuring all mostly similar kind of stuff, so you can very easily get right into that. Yeah, it's a good looking comic. It's comedy, sci-fi, some great looking mecha, and spaceships and things like that. So if you love that sort of thing, especially aliens in comedy and sci-fi, which I do, for some reason I think that's just a really funny kind of thing to have, like, Red Dwarf, all those kind of things. So if you like that, then get into Edentia by O2, rated E. And that was our featured comic, Edentia. I hope you liked that. Okay, next up we have the featured music by Gum Wallace. Gum Wallace has given us the theme to The Last Sheriff. Metallic tumbleweeds trundle by, singing a tune of plucked wire and steely resonance. In this one rocket horse town, this is the sound of an old west future, fully charged plasma blaster 6-shooters and robot cowboys in a world of red rusted steel and dust. Take it away, Gum Wallace, with The Last Sheriff. And that was our featured music. Thank you very much for that, Gummalus. The theme to The Last Sheriff by Reckless Hero. Thank you for that. All right. Let's get into this particular QUACKCAST, the Dreamcast. We're talking about nightmares, which is a news post that Tanks came up with. And
We've
what you
provided
hear
the
now,
scary cat ambiance for this.
exactly, this nightmarish sound of Demos, the demon cat.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't mute it fast enough because the app is lagging. So I apologize for any and everything.
It adds
any
sound
nightmarish
effects.
sound
Exactly.
that he makes.
So nightmares. How can nightmares be used to in a comic? How can they be used?
In as many ways as they harp on people.
Exactly. Well, we could read the whole news post.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Oh, really? No, let's not read it. Okay.
Well, we could read the 3 big ways they're used, or we could just go over those topics. So, number 1, Tance has in her news post, nightmares can increase the emotional engagement of your audience. Very true. You get into their heads, you get into a person's head, to a character's, see what they're all about. Tance says, a nightmare can make a character appear more sympathetic, as it is a form of torture, and we tend to want to help torture stop for any character that we feel may not deserve it. It also enriches the audience's intimacy with the character, since they are now privy to his or her dreams. And again, intimacy tends to make a character more sympathetic. On the occurrence that the character having the nightmare is an antagonist or villain, the nightmare may not make them more sympathetic, but it might either offer deeper understanding of why the character is as he is, or it might give catharsis, the knowledge that have snagged their rightful victim through the dreams. Whatever the case may be, it's still emotional engagement, and your story benefits. Very true. Yeah, awesome. It can bring you in, and it can show you that is going to be your POV character, very likely, unless they're having a nightmare about the POV, like about the protagonist or whatever, and where you're trying to indicate something about the perception of another character. I would say usually whoever's having the nightmare is going to be your point of view character, at least for that chapter or for that sequence.
Exactly. And generally, the nightmare is a tool that forces your audience to, as you said, get in the head of the character. And that might be a good thing or a bad thing as an experience. But definitely, either way, you will end up having the audience more engaged with the story as a whole. Because even if they hate the character and even if they are put off even more by the nightmare, that could also happen. Still, they are emoting with regards to the particular character and with regards to the story. And this is what engagement is all about. So definitely, no matter which way the audience swings in terms of the character, with a nightmare, often much more than a simple dream sequence, you get them to be involved more. And yeah, so that is definitely a thing. And the whole Aeneas thing, it's like the ancient Greek concept of the harpies that come to you in your dreams to torture you for your bad deeds, whatever crime you have done. So it's really basically a form of punishment. So then again, it can be cathartic if the nightmare is is of villain or an antagonist or someone that is in that position at a particular time. So yeah, all of that.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the way of making a character more sympathetic. The second point you've got is your character can be forced to react to whatever the nightmare is about. So that's the headline, at least. So this is often we're intimidated in any way by an issue. Often when we're intimidated in any way by an issue, a person or a situation, we tend to avoid it. Characters are no different, and they can be subtle enough or nuanced enough. They might do it very smoothly in their interactions with the rest of the cast. The audience often picks up on this, but it's not necessary that they understand why or to what extent the character is intimidated by what he or she is avoiding. A nightmare might be handy to explain this without disturbing the character's waking temperament and coherence.
That was a terrible sentence, but yeah, the whole idea that I was going with that is that when you have very stoic characters and when you have characters that generally don't tend to wear their emotions on their sleeve, yet you want the audience to have the impact of whatever it is the particular low tone character is feeling. Often you have to find a tool with which to bypass the trait that this character has of not externalizing what they are feeling. And the nightmare is a very easy thing to do without breaking any of your rules about this character, because the nightmare doesn't follow any rules. It's very private. Nobody has to know about it, so it won't necessarily affect the story itself or how the person interacts with other characters if you don't want that. So it's like a small little parenthesis where you give the audience the message that you want emotionally, and then you carry on with the audience knowing the stakes and knowing what it really means for that stoic character, for example, to have so and so or that such and such happen. So that's the idea.
Yeah, exactly. It can indicate things about them that you couldn't do in any other situation.
Yeah, or a character who is not chatty or is, like you said, stoic. Yeah, it's a really good idea. I think I would use this device. I might use it actually. This gives me an idea, and I previously had an idea about a brief nightmare a character would have that would give some insight about their motivations and why they are the way they are. And it's something like my characters tend to talk to each other about what's going on. I think their motivations are like they have other people to talk to, so I wouldn't need this as much. But I love it for the silent character. But it could even be a motivation that the character doesn't even realize, like what they're afraid of. You can sort of illustrate it for the audience. Like this might be the motivation. This is what they fear, and the character doesn't even realize it.
Yeah, it would.
Exactly.
I keep thinking now this would have been such a fantastic thing to do for the latest climax of the story in Pinky TA, but I've sort of missed my chance on it. The only thing I could do is do a cheat and say, "Oh, it was all a dream," and then yeah, but that's so bad to do that. See, that's a really bad cliche. So. Not good. Yeah. You can use nightmares really successfully in that, like the exam nightmare, which is not just the anxiety exam dream, where you dream you're late for an exam or whatever, or all the questions are in a different language or whatever, but you have that classic dream before an exam. and
Mm-hmm.
you have a nightmare about what's going to happen, which is a great thing to have for a climax, in that the denouement is going to happen, or whatever, the big reveal, but your character has a nightmare before that, which gives the audience a bit of foreshadowing about maybe what's going to happen, or maybe what the character is feeling about what's going to happen, or
That's
something
right,
about that. So
yeah, you see that used quite a bit, actually. Yeah, sort of like you were saying, raising the stakes.
Exactly, yeah, it can raise the stakes,
creating
increase
some
the
dread
impact
about a situation.
It can sort of load the impact even more, which
Yeah.
you couldn't necessarily
Also,
get.
another tool, another way that the nightmare can serve is that it can, quote unquote, prove sincerity in your character, like that maybe whatever they are doing or feeling is actually sincere and not pretentious. And I'm saying that thinking of, I didn't intend it for that, but it was a nice side effect, I guess. So I have nightmare that is experienced by my Nazi antagonist, who is having issues with what he represents and what he has been doing and all these things. So he experiences this nightmare, and we can see, actually it's a two-part nightmare in a sense, because we see two versions of the same dream, equally nasty. And the reason I had it in was to actually display the point of view of the particular character regarding the main characters in the story, that are the resistance, the Greeks. So, and how his concept and how he perceives of them. But the other thing that seems to happen for some of the readers is that they believe that him having issues with with his identity as a member of the Nazi Party and everything, and that he is actually having problems with this because of the nightmare, because he was having this nightmare, and that he was not just conforming to situations in order to survive. I was surprised about it, but clearly it's helped.
Yeah, exactly. You use it very effectively to sort of change the audience point of view of Albert? Arthur, sorry. Damn it. A heroic name.
It's fine. I am very bad with names. So, yeah. I mean, my intent was to show that he was actually intimidated by the person that he has killed. He is still intimidated by this person. But the biggest effect, I think, was more that he actually has problems with who he is, and like he's actually in a crossroads, right, of what to do and how to do it, and what stance to take. So, yeah,
he's
so
come
that
to
worked out
realize
nice.
that his friend Raban isn't such a nice guy after all. He's finally sort of coming to that realization. He's a horrible, horrible man. Yeah. So your last point here is that you can jump. That's basically what you're talking about now. You can jumpstart the emotional development in a character. That's exactly the point you're making. So yeah, it can like jumpstart like actual emotional development, not only just showing the audience the characters having a particular emotional state and illustrating it for them. It can actually visually, like, this is how the character is, it can, the emotional development happens because of the nightmare, basically. That's what you're saying. It's not just depicting it, it's actually
the biggest example, I guess, is Christmas Carol, Like if you see
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the entire book is this huge nightmare that he has.
Mhm.
And waking up from this nightmare, he has this completely different personality almost. So that would be, I think, if you were to name a trope after that particular use of a nightmare, I would name it the Christmas Carol
The
because,
Christmas Carol effect.
Yeah.
he enters being a terrible person that cares about nobody and all that, all these things, Scrooge, and then he exits having gone through all the emotional turmoil that nightmare is putting him through, a completely different person because he doesn't want to sustain or live with that particular distress anymore. So a nightmare can actually make the distress tangible or make a threat tangible that the person will want to actively avoid, and therefore they start changing. So yeah, you can definitely do that. The
Now,
nightmare.
one of the things that we talked about in our Patreon video, for the you poor people who haven't, seen our Patreon videos, was ways we could approach nightmares in our comics. And Tance has just told us how she's actually used a couple of nightmares in Without Moonlight. And Baines and I sort of chatted about how we'd use nightmares in our comics. So we'll fill you guys in on that. For Pinky TA, the way I would use them, I've had a dream sequence in Pinky TA, which was like a fantasy story, dragons, but I wouldn't really describe it as a nightmare so much as like just a weird dream, really. Although dreams do sort of like it's all part of a continuum, isn't it? There's not like a difference between nightmare and dream. How would you think of that in, psychologically? Is there really a difference between nightmares and dreams?
Well, there is definitely a difference, even physically. You have different physical reactions when you are having a dream and when you are having a nightmare. So there is a very deep difference between them in the sense that the nightmare is always about something that is troubling you or intimidating you or some kind of emotion that is negative, whereas a dream can be anything from negative stuff to very positive stuff to very convoluted things that are simply processing whatever you have been experiencing during the day. That could be wishful thinking, could be working out issues that aren't as intimidating, the work.
I was, yep.
Depends on the symbolism, really. If you are going to use, like when you use dreams, you have to be specific about how you are going to use them in your story. The easiest, I guess, would be to do an allegory or symbolize things and keep them consistent, and so that the audience can decipher relatively easily what the dream is about and what they are supposed to get out of it in the story.
I have had a nightmare in Pinky TA. I remember it now. Oh my lord. In the early part of Pinky TA, Pinky has a nightmare that she's actually having sex with Cece. She's dreaming, and she's having a fun dream that she's having like an erotic kind of encounter with a man, and it turns out to be Cece, and so that's like a nightmare for her. Which was a little comedic kind of nod to the audience. So yeah. I don't know. So yeah, but like you said, it's interesting. Like, wouldn't like a negative dream be a nightmare though? You're saying there's a
Not
different thing.
necessarily.
Like, for me, when I have dreams like myself, well, when I have like nightmares, they start out as nightmares, but I sort of fix them. So they should be a nightmare, like I'm being chased or, something bad's going to happen. But I always sort of turn it around so it's not and it turns into like more of just a neutral dream. So then it doesn't count as a nightmare anymore. I mean,
the idea is the nightmare is something that releases extreme negative emotions.
Yeah.
Or at least releases a lot of adrenaline, just put it like that.
Yeah.
So I think a negative dream, you can have a bad dream without it being a nightmare. But I don't think that fixing the nightmare towards the end disqualifies it. Because if it has made you still be shaky about it and still feel the emotional impact of it, still is a nightmare. The fact that you managed to fix it towards the end says more about you than the nightmare.
Right.
That's
interesting. Oh, yeah, that would be a really good thing to do in a story, because you never really have that level of complexity in nightmares in stories. It's always just straightforward, pretty much. It's never like the character going, okay, I'm going to fix this now, which would sort of mess up the impact of the nightmare in a way that, like the fictional nightmare author did not intend. It's like, say, in the Christmas Carol, instead of like Scrooge being intimidated and forced to change his ways, he gives himself a chainsaw and cuts up the ghost of Christmas future and wakes up being as evil as ever.
In a certain kind of story, it might work, but since generally stories are already metaphorical, like a metaphorical growth process for people, it'd be kind of strange for people to metaphorically grow or metaphorically solve their problems in a story. That's already supposed to be a metaphor. Kind of.
Oh, Inception. That's what we're getting to there. Now, we all saw Inception, and we all had negative points of views of that, and that's like dreamish nightmare. I think the whole point of the whole Inception idea was if it turns into a nightmare, then you lose control of it, and you get stuck, and you can never escape it. I think that was what happened.
Was it that, or did you lose your talisman or something like that? Like if you conflated reality with a dream, you could not tell which was which.
Yeah.
I don't remember anymore, but yeah.
Things did start.
I would say
go on.
That you could use the nightmare. There was a point that a used book made in the comments, and she's not wrong, of course. She's very right. But I did say that in order for a nightmare, it has to be used very sparingly. You can't, prepare the entire story with nightmares. Rely on that as a crutch to convey to your audience what your characters are feeling. This is not good writing. However, if the nightmare itself is a plot device that is more relevant to the story, then that's a different thing. For example, you could have nightmare that develops. I have that actually in my high fantasy novel. But a nightmare that starts as one thing, then the person experiences it again and again. Every time there is some difference, some nuance that is important, that is different. That could indicate development. of the character, the individual. And it could be the whole thing, especially if you have like the theme of your story is how someone deals, for example, with severe anxiety disorder, or how someone deals with a very traumatic event, or something that is extremely intimidating to them for whatever reason. Then this is very relevant because it's like a litmus test for the character where they are in their development, and very symbolically and very concretely obvious. And usually such stories end up with a nightmare never returning.
Yeah.
Like, it is resolved and it's done and it doesn't return again.
Well, yeah, that's used very effectively in RoboCop. He has dreams about his past as Murphy, and it's basically visions of his, like his nice family life and the horrible things that happened to him, and that resolves itself into him actually going and finding his wife, and him regaining his memories as a human, which was that's very effectively done, doing exactly that kind of thing. But I know what you mean, Tance, and I've seen that used very well in a few things, like Ender's Game. He has these terrible nightmares. Not the movie, but I mean, like the book. Sure, you've read it. Everyone's read it. This game he plays leaks into his mind, and instead of just experiencing this world in this game, now he's going further through the game in his dreams. And, horrible things happen, like, stabs a giant in the face and acid comes out and skeleton melts and I don't know, just awful things. So it is a nightmare, but it does develop. And that shows definite character progression in his, thinking and his development, which was done really well. Orson Scott Card isn't always a great writer, but sometimes he does show flashes of brilliance, which he did there. So yeah, that's very effectively used, like almost a serial nightmare.
Yeah.
So yeah, you
it's something that happens in real life. Like there are people that dream or the same recurring nightmare for years.
Yeah.
So it's not something that is fantastical. It's actually something that you encounter relatively often. And it could even be something extremely simple, but extremely stressful as well. I remember one of the nightmares that I used to have that was very stressful couldn't have been more than like a couple of fractions of a second or whatever. But it was simply the feeling of me sinking below the surface of water with a dumbbell in my ankle, around my ankle. And the only thing that I could see was the surface going further and further and further away from me.
Wow.
And that was terrible. There was no plot, there was nothing else. It was just that.
Oh, really?
Not even the sense of drowning was there in the dream. It was just this visual of seeing the surface going further and further away from you, and there is nothing you can do about it. So it could be something very simple, but also very symbolic of the headspace that the character is in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was gonna sort of talk about how we would use dreams if, like, say, if we did have a nightmare in our comics. Now, I've already said that Pinky TA actually does have one for comedic effect, which I forgot I even had. But the way I think I would use a nightmare now in my from what I've learned of writing and comic making is I would do it like like, you know, those good old cover pages, how they used to be done. Not cover pages, but book covers. They used to have, especially on pulp comics, you'll see the cover that they've done has all the kind of things that are going to be in the story. So you have, like, you know, maybe but all condensed into one image. So you have like a floating head of, you know, some villain character that's going to be in the story. You might have like people sword fighting over here. You might have this. So they're just like, you know, little images, vignettes, I suppose, of the things that characters will experience. Now that's how I think I would use a nightmare. I'd have the characters kind of seeing like a flash forwards, or maybe like assimilating things that have happened to them, and putting those like in some kind of order, so the viewers will sort of be forced to kind of connect them or create their own narrative out of those things, which creates a whole lot of, you know, symbolism. So, and, you know, have the character react to it, and something. Maybe Pinky's dreaming about this, and, you know, she's like terrified. There's like a negative spin put on the things she's experiencing, but it's not actually explained to the audience why. It's just sort of slightly indicated, but the whole purpose of it would be to make the audience make the connection. So, yeah, that's the way I would use it anyway. What about you, Baines? How would you sort of approach the nightmare?
Well, I think in mind, I've had an idea about a brief nightmare that Oscar will have that will kind of illuminate some of his fears, and it would be funny, because my comic's a comedy, and it would also sort of show something that he wouldn't admit to himself. That could also apply to most of the characters. Definitely Abigail. I could see, now that we're talking about this, I could see maybe confronting her with things that she doesn't even know herself. So I couldn't show it in a thought bubble or in dialogue.
Yeah.
But it show these very deep things. Yeah. So I could definitely see doing something with her. I have a specific idea for Oscar. In other kind of stuff that I'm slowly developing, that's more that has more of a darkness, might have more antagonism to it. I would like to use it as a stake raising, like, you know, having a nightmare of the worst case scenario, of the confrontation to come, or sort of sensing something in the future that you'll see in the nightmare play out at its worst, and show the stakes again, like Tense said, and then eventually you'll see the real situation, how it plays out, and hopefully the audience would be more, the readers would be more nervous about what specifically might go wrong, you know. So I'm definitely going to use this. This is very exciting. I guess that's how I'd use it. The other way in typical Strange would be to, did I already say it? To show the, I guess that's it. That's about it. I thought
what about Bottomless Waitress?
Bottomless Waitress. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it would be used for character development. Really, that would how it would be used. And I think it would be used not just for character development, but also like forcing a character to decide about something, because we've got a lot of characters with like hinting at character relationships and hinting at preferences and things like that. So the dreams would force them to confront those things. Like, Polly, so she's got like a lot of anger in her. So a nightmare would maybe show the reason for that. So you could show.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, like what in her past caused her to be that way. Nikki has her like her preferences. We could show, and Wilfred as well. So there's a lot of unrequited love with a lot as you're sort of building
more
that.
To come. Yeah.
Yeah. So
this comic is going to be a full blown romance by issue 2, probably.
Exactly. So nightmares can be confronting. Not only they could be confronting fears about that. So
That's a good idea.
Yeah, because when you have an unrequited love or a crush, obviously the fear is that not only don't they feel the same way, but they're going to ridicule you for it, or they're going to go with someone else. So you can very effectively, get someone's, show their fears. So it's enormous.
It's good for that comic too. Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking about it, there's another thing that you can do with Nightmare. Like there is this very iconic scene, iconic to me at least. I haven't seen anyone else quote it from the Glass Menagerie, where the main character, the girl, I remember her name. Anyway, she goes into this very graphic impression of what she expects the brace that she wears on her leg has on her classmates. That she goes into the class and the thing is rattling and everyone is paying attention to it and everyone is ridiculing her. It reads like a nightmare, the way that she is describing it.
Yeah.
And when she actually tells that to a classmate, an old classmate of hers, he says that I didn't even notice the thing. So, what, were you wearing something? That sort of level. So what we can show with the nightmare is that this huge blowing out of proportion that the character might have about a situation that is in reality something very non-threatening or very low stake, not high stake, in a sense.
Yes.
And that will tell us again a lot of things about the character and how they approach certain issues that others have completely different ideas about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent idea.
Laura was her name.
You blow up something massively that character is concerned about that no other character thinks at all about.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Precisely. Yeah, there's so many good ways you can use them, because as you say, they're different from dreams in that dreams is sort of just generally pleasant experiences. So you're not actually confronting anything in a dream. That's the thing. So a nightmare is more an active thing, whereas the dream is something more reactive, if we can put it in those terms when we were talking about like characters.
Mm-hmm.
So nightmares force you to...
And I mean, a dream in our topics of unrequited love and like stuff we're talking about can be definitely used in the same way as a nightmare. You know, you have a character has a very pleasant dream about someone or about a situation that they haven't achieved it in real life, but they dream of it, kind of, and it sort of gives them that little push.
Absolutely.
Wake up with some anxiety and stuff.
Or you can, a dream can easily turn into a nightmare. Not all nightmares start off, bombastic and terrifying. You can have something that looks like a very nice dream sequence where people are frolicking on fields and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then suddenly everything takes this turn for the very, very worse. So you can see like sort of a compare and contrast situation of what the pleasant situation that the person wants or is looking for, and then the fear.
Yeah,
that's
effective. Yeah, I've seen that done, of course, before. Yeah, where it's like it's ideal, and then it takes a turn that like cuts right into the character's fears.
Yeah, that has been done really well. In that, when they show something that's indistinct, I'm sorry if you covered this because I was just momentarily distracted. But when they show this thing happening, that's indistinguishable from normal reality, so you don't even know it's a dream as an audience. Did you say that?
No.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so when they like, okay, I need to do this performance, and I'm scared it's what it's gonna, how it's gonna turn out. So I have a dream about it, and well, I don't even know I'm dreaming. So I'm at the auditorium. I'm gonna do the performance, and I'm doing it. Oh my god, it's going so well. Everybody loves me. And then I look down and I'm naked, and then and then I forget the words, and I just can't speak, and all that comes out of my mouth is a scream. And then the audience realizes, oh my god, no! You give them that way. You're cluing them in that it must be a nightmare because this could not happen in reality. That's a good way of doing it, because you're not signposting it anything. It's things start off as if they are reality. It's no different from their normal life, and it's only when the fantasy starts happening that you know that it's beyond. And that way, you're also not giving them the cheat, the fake out. That I woke up. Oh, it was all a nightmare. I hate those. That's a terrible way to do it. Ramping up the reality is a better way of doing it, and then hyper reality and fantasy, because that way you're including the audience with you as the the writer. You're not like pulling the rug out from under them. You're cluing them in.
Yeah.
Which I think that always works better. I think they might have done that in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't know. We were talking about that silly show before, but yeah, that's a better way of approaching it. Red Dwarf, they sort of do that as well, I think. Sort of, just bringing up random references here. But yeah, there are good ways of approaching it and bad ways of approaching it. What are some of the worst ways of approaching the whole nightmare thing? We already talked about overdoing it. Like
the whole adventure was a nightmare. That's a risky one unless you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Or in the right circumstances, I guess I'm sure it could work. But
yeah, I would say going full opera on it would be bad, in the sense that if you make a nightmare be impactful, you have to sort of respect this cutoff point where the horror becomes almost comedic. Like you have to be below that line. Don't go above that line.
Comedic. Yeah.
Yes. In your effort to make this nightmare super horrifying, you actually make it into the best comedy sequence of the whole story. And that will definitely not get you the results that you want.
Oh, the first time when I really became immune to nightmares for many years was when I literally had a dream like that, a nightmare like that. It was like the normal nightmare started out like a haunted house kind of nightmare, and this terrible rotting inside, like holes in the floor and that kind of thing. And then I was attacked by a vampire, but it was a Bela Lugosi style vampire. And the dream was trying really hard. Well, the nightmare was trying really hard. It had all the effects and ghostly kind of sounds and everything, and the vampires and all that kind of thing. But because it was a Bela Lugosi style vampire, I just thought, hang on, that just doesn't make sense. Why would a man be dressed like in 1930s opera clothes? And with the ridiculous widow's peak hairstyle and the silly accent, and then it just became so totally hilarious to me. And the whole the vampires, and so nothing about the dream was scary then. And for years after, nightmares just wouldn't work because I'd always find something silly or funny about them, or to find some out. But just what you said. The dream tried too hard and it just turned out funny and it didn't work. So, be careful with your don't like overhype.
Also, another thing is don't let it go on for too long. Bit short and sweet, because you don't want your audience to grow accustomed to it, to grow tolerant to it. So it's like open the box of horrors for a second or two, and then snap it shut again.
Yeah.
Have everyone just gasp. What the fuck was that? Sorry, flip that out. So, the idea is that, like, otherwise, if you spend too long in the nightmare, people are going to be thrown out of the story because they had something else in mind. Now they are watching something completely different.
Yeah, it's becomes a non sequitur, and it sort of it changes the pace of things. It changes the energy of the story, and you don't want that. You want it to contribute to the energy of the story, not mess it up.
Exactly.
So yeah, you have to be very careful. Like in your nightmares, I think you only did 1 page for the nightmare.
But it was a double up.
Yeah.
For that particular purpose.
It was very quick.
Because
I remember it now.
Mm.
Yeah, it was really cool. The Pinky TA one, that was only a 1 page thing, I think. So yeah, just a single page, and that's all you need to sort of just give the punch. Unless your nightmare's
my fantasy stories were extended to about 5 pages, but I did run into that problem because of the the unplanned hiatus phenomena.
But then again, your fantasy stories, I mean, that was a story in itself. It wasn't just there to highlight or affect something. That was
exactly.
Yeah, it was
story.
That's true. Yeah, but when the hiatus went on too long, it was kind of a mess up still, because it's like, this isn't the sort of this isn't the series. This is supposed to be just a little side trip. So.
Yeah.
What is that to think of?
And Pinky TA, same thing. She had a dream sequence that went on forever. I'll go on, Tance, sorry.
Thinking about the sequence that Used Books is having right now, I think it's going on for like 3 or 4 pages, more or less, and but it works. And the reason that it works is because it gives you more information about the character, and it's more about the character's struggle with his own self, and it's like watching basically a fight.
Oh,
so
right.
It's a fight with himself. So that works. It works very well. Although it's going on for like 4 or 5 pages, something like that. Exactly, because and also it's suspenseful because the nightmare is being used while the character is unconscious. So instead of having like the character being a sort of black box, we don't know what he's thinking, and we watched the others trying to get him back to health. Instead of watching that, which wouldn't contribute to the story anything, we watch what is going on in his mind and why he basically ended up being as he was. So it advances the plot in a big way, and it gives you the information that you would be lacking, because exactly this character wouldn't let you know about it as an audience. So
yeah, you couldn't really show it any other way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I think we've very well covered the idea of nightmares and how they can be useful and how they're different from dreams. All right, thank you everybody for listening to QUACKCAST number 421, and hopefully you'll take on our Patreon and have a look at the videos we do. We'll have to do something more spectacular.
Dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on.
These dreams go on when it's cold outside. Okay, bye guys.
We could go on and on. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dreamweaver.